We are live. We are live. It is a big story, actually. It's always these news stories, isn't it? Late news stories. And it turns out that Mustafa Ali, there you go, I'm a bit more angled up there. Mustafa Ali, WWE superstar Mustafa Ali, has requested his release from WWE. This is a story that's been breaking in the last few minutes or so, about the last maybe 30 minutes or so. I was actually doing a stream over on United View when I saw this breaking, so I thought as soon as I finish up with that one stream, we're going to come straight over here and talk about Mustafa Ali. So hence me being a little bit frazzled, and I just took a few minutes to get all the details I could on this situation. So if you haven't seen, or you would have seen when it comes to this thumbnail for this stream, we're live for this one, that Mustafa Ali, WWE superstar Mustafa Ali, has announced he has requested his release from his WWE contract. Mustafa Ali has taken to Twitter to request his release from WWE. This is what he had to say, quote, "I have a message that is much bigger than my dreams in pro wrestling. Despite my best effort, I will not be able to deliver this message while working with WWE. Therefore, I am requesting my release from WWE." Now, when it comes to the reasonings behind this, there is quite a lot, actually. There is way more than goes into this. Now, we haven't actually seen Mustafa Ali for a while on WWE television. He was reportedly off of TV because of he was on paternity leave at the time, and that was kind of the explanation as to where he was. People going, "Where's Mustafa Ali?" And the response was, he's on paternity leave, so don't worry about that. You got some people that were trying to say, "Oh, you're trying to make a big story out of nothing," all that kind of stuff. Well, there is way more to it than just being on paternity leave, because if someone on paternity leave, one, they would be back by now, and two, they wouldn't be requesting their release from the company. 202 Degrees says, "Hey Owen, it makes sense him getting released." Michael says, "Hi Owen, I'm thinking Mustafa Ali, he'll go to AEW." Actually, you're a bit cut off there. Let me move that over to here. There you go. I can see your full comments. Darthor says, "Not surprised. Great fit for Ring of Honor when they come back if he wants to continue wrestling." 202 says, "Ali was a Triple H project too." And Brian Gax is joining us as well. So the full story about this, yes, the full story about this comes from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. It's quite a lengthy story as to the reasoning behind Mustafa Ali requesting his release. I mean, first of all, before we get actually into what Sean Ross Sapp has said, Mustafa Ali requesting his release isn't actually that surprising in general, just because of the guy has not been used really at all. This goes back to 2019. He was scheduled to win Money in the Bank. What happened there? Big bad Brock Lesnar came out. That changed things. He was the original plan. Nobody knew about that. He was getting a little bit of a push. Actually, if you go back even further than that, right? He was going to be feuding with, I believe, was it Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship on SmackDown Live. He got the injury. Instead, Kofi Kingston went into that spot. Mustafa Ali was never going to be facing Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. That spot was actually scheduled to be for Kevin Owens. And that all changed. Kofi Mania happened, all that kind of stuff. But there were points in time when it looked like Mustafa Ali was going to be going somewhere. Injury, circumstance, change of plans happened. And it led to him doing nothing for ages. Eventually, after doing nothing, he was meant to be the hacker, right? He was meant to be the hacking gimmick that actually got people talking on SmackDown during the pandemic. That got quietly dropped. Then after doing nothing, he gets moved to Raw, and suddenly he's the leader of Retribution. And what a dumpster fire that was of a segment as well. Of a faction and of an angle and of a storyline that was as well. And then after that, what does he do? Retribution split up. He teams with Mansoor for a while. I think one of the last times we saw him was at Crown Jewel, losing to Mansoor in that Saudi match that just happens every time they go there. That Mansoor wrestles and he wins to keep the people happy. And then he disappeared. Like I said, he went on paternity leave. But there's way more to that, and there's a bigger reason as to why he has not returned as of yet. So this is the situation. This is what Sean Ross Sapp said. Mustafa Ali, of course, wasn't on SmackDown this past week, which prompted Fightful to dig around about the status. Now, since then, of course, Mustafa Ali has announced he has requested his release from the company. Now, according to Fightful, Mustafa Ali actually only asked for one show off for paternity leave, even though he hasn't appeared on WWE programming since back in November. So he only asked for one show off. Despite only asking for one show off, we're in January now. He hasn't appeared on TV since. So this has got nothing to do with paternity leave at this point. Now, even before that, Mustafa Ali was not at Survivor Series. He was not at the SmackDown prior to Survivor Series, which internally just looked like the company was extending his paternity leave at the time. People just chalked it up to he requested some time off for paternity leave. Maybe they've just extended it. No. That wasn't the reason why. He only asked for one show off. There is way, way, way more to it than that. And Fightful are reporting that the sources that they've spoken to have said that he hasn't been back at SmackDown since then. And sources to Fightful are even indicating that they were surprised that Ali wasn't even at the SmackDown show in Chicago in any capacity. Of course, he's from Chicago. It would make sense, given that he's from Chicago. He lives in Chicago. He would be at the Chicago show. He wasn't. And everyone thought, that's a bit strange. So Mustafa Ali has actually been available for a return to WWE programming and just to WWE in general, WWE shows in general, since the first week of December. So despite him being available for the first week since December, he's still not back. That's more than paternity leave. So as Ali revealed a few weeks ago, there was a vignette filmed for a new Mustafa Ali character, which was going to be the Mustafa Ali New America gimmick. You saw that on social media. It was a vignette that he filmed, talking, preaching, if you will. It was a great vignette, a great segment, and got a lot of buzz. And in reality, Ali only released it when he said, actually, this isn't going to happen. I thought it was going to happen, but this is it. And everyone went, that's great, and it actually looked promising for the star. Now, again, this comes from the Fightful source, according to those in the know, initially that character, the New America version of Mustafa Ali, was accepted, but things change, as they always do in WWE. Those in power ultimately changed their mind. Maybe it was too controversial. Maybe it was too cutting edge. Maybe it was too much on the political pulse of society right now that they decided to change that, and Mustafa Ali's New America character was dropped. We're told, and this is coming from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, they are told that in its place, there was a pitch from Vince McMahon for, quote, something Mustafa Ali would never have done. And it led to a heated argument between Mustafa Ali and the WWE chairman. Since that argument between Mustafa Ali and Vince McMahon, Mustafa Ali has not been round since. So Vince McMahon pitched a gimmick, a character, to Mustafa Ali that he absolutely would not have done. Mustafa Ali pushed back and said, absolutely no way, I can't believe you're asking me to do that. They had an argument, and Mustafa Ali hasn't been round since. Now, Mustafa Ali said in the fall, in an interview, this was from the Metro, that previously Vince McMahon had told him he was, quote, too polished, too clean, too nice, and I don't know if you have it in you. Now, eventually, he was brought back to lead Retribution. So Mustafa Ali was told that after he was going to be the hacker and he was off television for a while, but he came back and he was brought back to be the leader of Retribution. Now, McMahon had some degree in trust in him at some point, as Ali was able to have his own vignettes produced and used on WWE television. Now, a higher up in WWE has told Fightful that they've granted requests for releases as of late, because it's difficult to justify not granting releases when they've had so many budget cuts recently, right? If you're releasing and firing all of these people, if someone comes up to you and goes, I don't want to work here anymore, it's very difficult to turn them down, because you can say, well, actually, you're letting go of all of these people, you're trying to cut budgets, I'm giving you the opportunity right now. Cut me out of the budget. I don't want to be part of your budget anymore. If you're already trying to cut budgets, I can save someone else's job, right? Let me go. So WWE are in a bit of a situation now whereby if Mustafa Ali is requesting his release, they've kind of got to let him go. They did it with Toni Storm. Toni Storm, she just went, no, I'm burnt out, I'm tired, I don't like it here, let me go. And they did. So they've already set a precedent now that maybe that's what they're going to do. Now, one wrestler currently on the SmackDown roster said to Fightful that for someone that works on his craft as much as Mustafa Ali does, not having anything for him or featuring him at all was seen as a punishment. Ali was well liked within WWE and is well liked within WWE, and Fightful have had numerous talent mention their desire to work with him since he was initially brought up to SmackDown. That call-up in itself was only supposed to be a one-off. He is also known for often pitching his own creative and having own ideas for his character. Now, Fightful has reached out to WWE to see if they've granted the request, but they haven't heard back since then. Of course, if we get any confirmation that Mustafa Ali is gone from WWE, we'll talk about it here on the channel. So, it's It is a surprising one, certainly. Well, now I say that, it's not a surprising one. Let's be honest here. It's not a surprising one that Mustafa Ali has requested his release from WWE because he wasn't being used, and I don't know. I really don't know what that gimmick would be. To be honest, I shudder to think. What gimmick Vince McMahon and WWE pitched to Mustafa Ali that he absolutely wouldn't done. I'm not going to speculate because one, that's not fair, and two, I could probably get myself into a lot of trouble. All I will say about that is just put the dots together. Put the dots together. Let's think here. Vince McMahon, who we know's head is in the 1980s. Bruce Pritchard, who again, his head is in the 1980s. Mustafa Ali, they're pitching him a gimmick he absolutely wouldn't do. I don't think that takes much of a leap. Now again, I don't know that to be true, and I'm not going to go any further than that, but I think that speaks volumes. I think that absolutely speaks volumes. And frankly, if that is the case, if the things we're kind of assuming to be right there are accurate, then Mustafa Ali is well within his rights to push back against anyone, let alone the chairman of the company, let alone the executive directors of creative in that company. He's well within his rights to say no. He's well within his rights to say no to anything. So, again, we don't know that to be completely accurate. And once Mustafa Ali says it himself, then maybe we'll talk about that. But it's just a shame. It's just a shame. But at this point, it's not exactly super surprising, to be honest with you. Again, they've misused this guy over and over again. And this is sometimes the mistake that I think people don't realize when it comes to the pro wrestling fans or WWE fans when they get upset about situations like this. They'll say, because I see this a lot, when people get released or they request their release from the company, you see people say, yeah, but they're never going to be a top guy. Mustafa Ali's never going to be world champion. Mustafa Ali's not a main event guy. He doesn't move the needle like a Roman Reigns or whoever. He doesn't sell tickets. He doesn't sell out arenas. Why are you getting so upset? Why are you getting so upset about Mustafa Ali? And it's like, it's not the point. I don't think anyone watching right now, live with us or in the chat afterwards on demand, will be saying that Mustafa Ali should be Universal Champion. He should be the guy to beat Roman Reigns. We're not saying that. We're saying, though, that Mustafa Ali is talented. He's good in the ring. He just deserves a chance. And people say, well, what was Retribution? Retribution was dead on arrival, okay? And look at the amount of times that they pulled the plug on this guy for stuff that's been interesting. The hacker gimmick. We don't know if that hacking gimmick could have been anything, but it got people talking. It was interesting, right? If you forget or you're not aware what I'm talking about, early 2020, this is right before the pandemic, you had episodes of SmackDown, and then during a match, you just see a flicker on the screen. And it was like a technical glitch. And everyone went, what was that? And people, it was during matches nobody cared about or anything like that, and people just picked up. They went, oh, that was weird. And they go on social media. Was that just me? Was that my television? They go, no, I saw that as well. And people were talking about it. What was that? And they got a lot of social media buzz. What was that glitch? And it kept happening and happening and happening. It wasn't just during the matches. It might be during a backstage segment. It might be on a screen behind them. And every single week, there was a little bit more and more and more. And people went, what is that? That's really interesting. Eventually, because people are social media sleuths and we're pro wrestling fans and we're obsessed and we love this stuff, people figured out what it was. It was the same light that's on Mustafa Ali's hand when he puts it up at the screen. People figured it out, but people went, you know what? I'm interested in this. This is a character I can get behind. It's a bit modern. It's a hacking gimmick. It's interesting. I'm curious. And the way it was delivered, it was fun. And then pandemic happened and they just dropped it. No explanation. Not going to talk about it one again. It was GTV all over again. Goldust in the 90s, right? Goldust, that thing that was meant to be the return of Goldust, the hidden camera stuff. That's what it was. That's what it was. And people, it's the modern day GTV. Was just never going to have an explanation. And Mustafa Ali, after being off television for months, eventually returns. He's on Raw. And like anything with WWE, they just go, Mustafa Ali's back on Raw. He's back on Raw. Even though he was on SmackDown previously, he's on Raw now. And he was on Raw for a while, and he was teaming up with, I guess, the new version of the Job Squad. That was Ricochet and Apollo Crews. And they were losing all the time in matches, and it was boring. And then eventually, Retribution happens. And even at the time when Retribution was happening, everyone said, man, what a tone-deaf gimmick. And what a gimmick that makes no sense. I mean, there's this invading faction that's tearing up the Performance Center. But during shows, they're not taking shows off. It was just dumb. It was so dumb. So everyone went, this Retribution gimmick, it sucks. It doesn't make any sense. Eventually, it's revealed that Mustafa Ali is the leader of Retribution. Of these NXT stars, by the way, even though we can't refer to them as NXT stars, we can't use their names that they've been using the entire time they've been in WWE. Oh, and they're wearing stupid masks as well. It was so dumb. It was the dumbest gimmick going around. And what do they do with the dumbest gimmick, the dumbest faction? They give it Mustafa Ali to lead it. Try and fix that. Try and lead that. If you can fix that, then we'll push you. Talk about a poison chalice. It was dead on arrival. And what do? It fails. Not just because it fails, because Mustafa Ali was the leader. It failed because the booking sucked. How can you be a dominant faction and lose every single week? How can every single time you're in a singles match you lose? So what happens? Eventually they all split up and Mustafa Ali goes his own way, and then it's kind of blamed on Mustafa Ali, like it was your fault Retribution failed. No, it wasn't. Creative, have a look at yourselves. Have a look at yourselves and go, no, Retribution failed because it was stupid. It was stupid. And what does he do after that? He's Mustafa Ali again, and he was a tag team with Mansoor. Why was he in a tag team with Mansoor? Because they had a Saudi show coming up. And Mansoor, and I think Mansoor's fine at what he does. I mean, every time he's based on a SmackDown or a Raw in the United States, 9 times out of 10 he loses. When he goes to Saudi Arabia, he turns into Hulk Hogan and he beats everyone. But Mustafa Ali, to get a good match out of him, that's what he did. And they had the match at Crown Jewel. But this is a guy that's just every single time he's had something going for him in WWE, he's had it pulled away or a bit of bad luck. As I mentioned, he was meant to be working for the WWE Championship in early 2019 until he got the kick in the eye by Randy Orton. He got the eye injury and that took him out of the game. Instead, that's how Kofi Mania happened. Because originally that year, WrestleMania 2019, it was going to be Daniel Bryan versus Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens was going to be a babyface. And that all changed because actually Mustafa Ali's injury and Kofi Kingston getting over. So you feel for this guy, but later on that year you think, right, he's going to get another opportunity. Mustafa Ali is going to win Money in the Bank. He was the favourite. Closing moments, he's got his hands on the briefcase, and they swerved everyone, including the people in the match, by the way, because people in the match did not know the finish. Reportedly, they were told literally, I guess, minutes before it actually happened, Brock Lesnar's coming out. Brock Lesnar comes out, he wins Money in the Bank. Everyone was furious. They got screwed over. And now, you fast forward a couple years later, of course he's furious. Of course he's furious. And, he's been pitched stupid ideas, bad ideas, and they're not doing anything with him. And I think eventually he's just gone, it's enough. I've tried. I've pitched new characters. I've filmed vignettes. I remember at one point, Mustafa Ali was having a feud with Ricochet on Main Event. It wasn't because there was any storyline going for him. It wasn't because any of the creative team were putting together some story or some angle for him. No, they literally just had nothing to do. They had nothing to do. They had no storylines or anything going for them. They were wrestling each other on Main Event every single week. Nobody cared. So they thought, you know what? We're just going to do an angle on social media. If we get fired, we get fired. But you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just do it. Let's just start doing promos on each other on our social media platforms. And then even if not, it's good practice. Maybe people might actually watch Main Event or something like that. They were trying. They were trying to do something. And you know what? Fair play. People started talking about it a little bit. But eventually that stops. Because those in power in WWE or those on the creative team or those whoever, they then realize they go, oh my goodness, they're doing their own stories. They're doing their own angles, their own promos. If they can actually cut a promo that doesn't involve a script, or if they can do a storyline that doesn't involve a creative team member walking them through it, we're completely redundant here. So once again, nothing happens. And then eventually, whilst he's on paternity leave, even though he asked for one show off and he's not doing anything, he gets pitched this gimmick by Vince McMahon that Ali goes, absolutely no way I'd ever do that. He pushes back, and now he's on the sidelines, and now he's requested his release. And him leaving would be the best thing for him. Frankly, at this point, if he's not happy there, as the report by Sean Ross Sapp, who once again does a tremendous job, huge fan of Fightful, at this point, like the report says, you're releasing so many people anyway. You're using the excuse of budget cuts. You're saying budget cuts, we've got to let people go. Sorry, it's out of our hands. If someone comes up to you and says, okay, yeah, I want to go. I want my release. You're talking about budget cuts all the time. I'm making your job easier. I'm cutting that budget for you. So you don't have to fire one of my friends that actually does want to be here. I don't want to be here. So I'm offering you my salary. I'm offering you my contract. Release me from it. You don't have to pay me. I'll go. Because I don't want to be part of this company. I don't want to be part of this budget. I don't want to be part of this roster. He should just go. And if they turn it down, frankly, it's laughable. Because one, you're not doing anything with him. And two, you're letting people go anyway. He's making your job easier. Now, whether or not he will go or they will agree to it, I wouldn't be stunned. We've seen this happen in the past. When it came to Neville, Pac, that he just decided he wanted to leave. And it was a different time, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a case of, Vince McMahon, especially if you had an argument with Vince McMahon can be a very, very, very vindictive person. Vince McMahon can be a very, a person that holds grudges. He absolutely can be the opposite of it as well. He can be someone that forgives and forget when it comes down to money and business, because business always comes first to Vince McMahon. But if you wrong him, this is the same guy that fired CM Punk on his wedding day. This is the same guy that held Pac in a contract for months, saying, you didn't show up so we can add time onto your contract. This is the same guy that took money away from people during a pandemic when they were streaming and doing Twitch and Cameo and all that kind of stuff, because heaven forbid they make some money when they're not working. And later on, a lot of them were fired anyway to make a statement. That's what Vince McMahon does. So I wouldn't be surprised if Vince McMahon said, you know what, sorry, Mustafa Ali, you've got to sit on this for a while. You've got to sit on this for a while. You don't talk to me like that. How dare you insult my creative genius? These are the same guys that pitched wearing lipstick and glow sticks to FTR before they left. It's the same guys that pitched Adam Cole managing Keith Lee before he left. And Keith Lee's gone as well. The same guys that pitched Karrion Kross wearing a gladiator mask and wearing suspenders before he was fired. This isn't the best creative team that's ever been in place when it comes to WWE. It's ridiculous, frankly. So, will Mustafa Ali stick around? Will he go? Who knows? It's disappointing, but I think, like with a lot of people recently, if Mustafa Ali does indeed leave WWE, it might be the best thing for him. Where would he go? I'm sure people like AEW, of course, they would be interested. He fits the mold of talent that they're looking for. I think that he would fit well, of course, in Impact Wrestling. If he went to Impact Wrestling, gosh, he could be easy X Division champion. He could be Impact World champion. The sky's the limit for him, and it absolutely is. He could go anywhere. Go to New Japan. I'd love to see Mustafa Ali working the best of the Super Juniors. I'm not sure if he fits into the weight category. He probably does. There's tons of stuff that he could do, and he could make a good living and do what he wants. And frankly, I think he's one of these guys that cares. He's one of these guys that ultimately cares about his character and cares about his work and really likes to get involved in the creative process. Malachi Black was another one that was exactly like this. They really enjoy the creative process. They enjoy the layering of characters. They enjoy the mythos behind their characters. And ultimately, that kind of mentality or that kind of personality doesn't work today in modern WWE. That's why WWE's focus now is recruiting people that come from college backgrounds, from the NBA, from the NFL, from the NHL, from basketball, from, whatever, track and field, bodybuilding, powerlifting. They like picking up those people because they like picking up those guys that they can just dictate to, essentially. They can tell them this is what your character is. They can tell them this is your promo. They can tell them this is how you work. When you've got people that are legitimate wrestling fans and have grown up wrestling fans and worked on the indies for a while, they have a passion for the product. They have a passion for what they do. They have a passion for their character, and their character means something, and the layers behind those characters mean something. And that kind of mentality doesn't work today in WWE, because WWE is telling you this is what your character is going to be. And you've got someone like Mustafa Ali or Malachi Black go, no, this is what I want my character to be. This is my idea for my character. And you've got a writer, or you've got a creative team, or you've got directors, and they're saying, no. This is what your character is going to be. And it doesn't work. So ultimately, where do I think Mustafa Ali is going to go? Is he going to leave WWE? I think ultimately he'll go. I think we've seen this even before all of these releases. I think back to Andrade earlier this year. Once they've gone public and they've requested their release, 9 times out of 10 they end up going. WWE will say no at some points, but eventually they acquiesce because eventually they realize it's bad publicity. It's bad PR to essentially be keeping someone that that doesn't want to be there. They can piss and moan, and they can try and make you sit out your contract, or they can do whatever they want. Ultimately, Mustafa Ali is on his way out at WWE. Whether it's in the course of the next week or couple of weeks, I think it'll be relatively quick, because I think like Toni Storm, she kind of saw the writing on the wall and she went, actually, you're releasing all these people, budget cuts, so I'm actually doing you a favor. And I think that's what Mustafa Ali will probably say. And if they decide to sit on it and decide to keep him, then again, I think eventually he'll go. But we'll have to wait and see when it comes to that. Either way, guys, look, thank you very much for joining me again. We usually go live when there's breaking news or stuff like that. So I really appreciate everyone that's tuned in, or if you're watching after the fact, that's awesome too. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. We've got Nearly 50 people watching, so be sure to smash a like on the like button. We've got 17 likes so far, so let's see if we can get those numbers up. And if you are new to the channel as well, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Really appreciate it. We do daily videos talking about WWE news, AEW news, Impact Wrestling news. We also do watch-alongs for pay-per-views and post-shows. So obviously the Royal Rumble's coming up at the end of the month. We'll be doing a watch-along and a post-show for that. So now is the best time to subscribe. As I mentioned, be sure to smash a like on the like button too. Either way, guys, I'm out of here. Have a good one, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.